Hi everyone. Today I'm gonna show you how to set up your document and grids in InDesign. So first thing first, we're gonna start from the basics. We're gonna make a new document. And I believe for your new accordion project, Susie wants you to have a 6 by 12 measurement. So that's why you're going to plug in here, make sure it's in inches. And make sure the orientation is vertical because she wants you to have 12 by 12 spreads. So that's the right way to do it. And then you're gonna make sure that facing pages is checked because it's gonna make sure that every spread is viewed as a spread and not as individual pages. So make sure that that's checked. That's very important. And then you're gonna create your document. And so here you have your first page. It's not next to another one because that will be your page, your cover. So it's not really a spread, it's a cover. That's why it's on its own. But if you were to make let me make this smaller. If you were to, of course you're gonna make more pages. So you just click on here, create a new page, and you can see that they transform into layouts, into spreads, sorry, as you go and make new ones. So that's just gonna be your document. You're just gonna keep adding pages as you design. Yeah, and then let's say if you want to make your last page, you're just gonna add one, and that's gonna be your back cover. So to make your grids, also if you don't see this page menu, what you're gonna want to have to do is you go to window, and then you're gonna make sure that pages is checked. Sometimes it's not checked, but mine by default is checked for some reason because I always have it on. But if you don't have that on, just make sure you do that so you view all of your spreads. And then once you have that open, to set up your grids, you're gonna have to go to this tab right here where it says A Master, and you're gonna select it. And you're also gonna make sure you press Shift and you press both of them. You have to have both of them selected in order to create your grids. Because if only one of them is selected, the grids is just gonna be set up on one page instead of both of them. So the reason why we're using A Master is because the A Master is kind of like the master page, and it's gonna make sure that whatever you do on this page is gonna be applied to every single page in your spread. So let's say if I don't do them on my A Master, and if I were to do it just on the cover, and I would set up my grids, I would do everything that I'm about to show you guys, I would have to then set that same setting on every single spread, every single page, because I'm not doing it on my A Master. That's why you do it on your A Master, so you save yourself some trouble. Again, make sure that both of them are selected. Very important. So we're gonna start off with talking about margins. Margins are basically the borders of the page, and whatever is left blank before you start designing. So you're gonna go to layout and then margins and columns. And here's where you're gonna set up your margins. I always have it set to 0.5. Every once in a while, I make it a little bit bigger or smaller, but that's my personal preference, but you can make these bigger or smaller. And often when you're designing books, not much in the case of the accordion because you're gonna want to have that continuity from page to page. But if you're designing a book and you only want to change the inner margin, because when you make a book, the pages sort of go inside and you're gonna lose some of that design. So you're gonna want to have more space. I'm just teaching you guys this for fun. You're gonna uncheck this, and then you're gonna just move the inside. And as you can see, only the inside is moving. And you can do the same thing for the top one, for the bottom one, for the outside one. But yeah, I'm just gonna uncheck that and keep it as normal. But that's one fun fact if you want to work with that. And then once I'm done with my margins, I just click OK. And then I'm just gonna go to layout again and create guides. And here's where we're gonna work with our rows and our columns. And I'm just gonna teach you guys an example, but you guys are gonna be making your own personalized grid based on your design needs. Every grid is not gonna look the same. Your grid is probably not gonna look the same as mine. This is just to teach you an example, but you're gonna be making your own. So let's say, and you're gonna want to make sure that the preview is checked so you can see what you're making as you work around these grids. So let's say I want 6 rows, and then I want, let's say I want 4 rows, okay? And then as you can see the grids that you're making. You can also play around with the gutter, let's say, which is the spacing between each row and column. So if I want the gutter to be wider, you just change it here. You would change this here as well. But for now, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna put 0.25 for both of them. So yeah, you adjust basically the gutter and the number of columns and rows as you see fit. You also have the option to decide whether or not you want your guides to fit into your margin or to your page. So basically the difference is that when you check it for margins, it takes into consideration that margins are just spaces that you're not taking into consideration when you're designing. I personally think it doesn't really matter that much, because at the end of the day, you're just paying attention to whatever's inside and you're designing your grid according to that. But some people feel more comfortable checking the margins just so you have a more organized idea. Ideally, you would check it to your margins so it makes more sense. But for me, I think I'm just so used to working with them that I just set them up either way. But that's a personal preference. You can check them however you want, see what feels more comfortable to you. Normally, what happens to me, I never get my grid right on the first try. I usually make it, think it's right, and then I start designing and I'm like, no, I don't want this to be as wide. And then I have to go back to my A master and change it. So you want to make sure you play around a little bit before you're set on a grid, and you make sure that that's the grid that you really want, instead of starting to actually design your final design and then realize later on that that's not what you wanted. So make sure you play around once you have it done, which is what we're gonna do in a little bit. So let's say this is the setup that I'm gonna want, and then I'm gonna click OK. And remember that we're still on our A master spread. So if I click off of here and I just go to the rest of my pages, as you can, as I told you, every single page is already with the grid that we created on here. And if you make a new page, like they're just gonna be, sorry, as you create them, they're gonna be exactly the same grid. So don't worry about that. So once you have once you have that set up, I'm gonna teach you guys how to plug in images and text. So your best friend in InDesign is gonna be this rectangle tool right here. You can use it for literally anything. You can use it for images. You can use it for color as well. But let's just work around images for now. And the thing with grids, you're gonna want to make sure you work within the gutter. Like you made a grid, so you want to respect it, right? So I'm not just gonna make an image over here. Why? Because you see, it's not aligning with the gutter that I set up. Like that's not respecting the grid that I set up for myself. So you're gonna want to follow the grid. You know, you can put an image there, or you can also make it like this, or you can also make it this big. You know, you're gonna have your flexibility around your grid, but you're gonna want to still respect it. So, you know, let's say that's our cover, right? So then how do you plug images once you have your rectangles, your boxes, your guides set? So you're gonna want to go to File and then click Place. It's really important that you click Place and not any other thing like Open Image or Open Recent. No, it's always gonna have to be Place if you're gonna have to work around the rectangle that I'm showing you. So make sure you're clicking Place, otherwise it's just not gonna work. And then let's say I want these 3 images right here. So I'm gonna select them, I'm gonna click open, and then you're gonna have the little images right next to your cursor, and then they're waiting basically for you to place them somewhere. So let's say that I want this top image on this little rectangle, so it places right there. And then I want this one on the tiny one, and then this one I'm gonna want right here. So you basically click on top of the rectangle that you've already created with the shape. So they're gonna be placed right here. And if you want to scale them up or down, you're just gonna select the circle and you're gonna scale it with this. I also like to scale it with my trackpad. I'm just doing by this motion. And then it's super easy. What I'm doing right now, it's literally just this on my trackpad. So you set your images however you want to. Let's say I want this like that, and this one a little bit more cropped. And right now your design is looking a little bit choppy because you have all of these grids on top of them. You can't really see what you're doing. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna press the key W on your keyboard, you press W, and then you're gonna see your blank document. All of your grids are gone, but they're not really gone if you press W again, they're right there. But it's just easy to work around and see if things are looking good or bad or horrible or really good. So that's what you're gonna want to do. Now, what I would recommend is do exactly what I was doing. Like you place your rectangles or your shapes first, just so you have a general idea of how your design is gonna look like before you start actually bringing in your images. So that's the easier way to do it. Now, if you're gonna put text on this, working with paragraphs, it's basically the same thing, respecting grids. So let's say I want to place text, and let me just place it right here, just as I would do if I was placing an image. Think of text as placing images as well. So I'm just gonna fill this with like dummy text so you understand. But that will be my paragraph. As you can see, it's like within the gutters that I've created. It's not here, it's not, you know, it's respecting the grid. So if I were to make it different, I could also make it like this, or, you know, but make sure you're like actually respecting the workspace that you set up for yourself. So that's how you would work with paragraphs. Obviously, you change your font here to whatever you want. So and so. I don't know if you guys know this already, but this is how you treat your characters, which would be the font, how big or how small you want them to be, how separated you want your lines to be. But if you want to work specifically with the paragraph overall, you would go to Window, and then actually you would go to Type and Paragraph. Sorry, I keep forgetting this. And then here you have your paragraph, and then here you can set however you want your text, if you want it to be indented or not. Yeah, those are some little features that you probably weren't expecting in this tutorial, but I'm just throwing information out there. So yeah, that's a paragraph, but you would do the same thing if you wanted to create like a bigger text, a title per se. So let's just click hello and make it really big so you guys sort of understand what I'm getting to. Okay, so here we have a title. And then same thing, you know, you respect the grids. You can also place it right here, you know. And that's basically how you work around grids. You need to make sure that things are aligned, that you're respecting the gutters, that you're not placing this in the middle of the gutter, you know, like text never goes in the gutter. It's always inside of it. So that's how you set that up. And I think that's it. I can't really think of anything else. But if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I would be more than glad to answer them for you. And yeah, that's it for this tutorial.